I can speak now to Andy Burnham, joining us live from Manchester. Good morning.
Good morning, Trevor.
It's a charming snowscape you've got there, but can you update us?
I'm in Wigan actually, or Goulburn, more to be more precise. It's not the Alps where I'm speaking to you from. I'm not on a skiing holiday.
Okay, well, I thought you were opening a new resort there. But anyway, what's the situation, if you wouldn't mind telling us, on Manchester Airport and generally? What are you advising people to do? Stay at home?
This morning, that is the advice for people not to travel unless absolutely essential. Where I'm talking to you from now, Trevor, so near Lee, between Wigan and Lee, I would say 4 inches of snow here. So the roads are being gritted as we speak, and efforts are being taken to keep everything running. But there's been disruption at the airport. We're expecting rain mid-morning, so we do expect the snow to start to clear as the day progresses.
What did you make of West Streeting's advice to people to layer up and turn up the heating, given that the government isn't paying for the heating anymore? Is that wise?
I think, well, it's what the Department for Health would say every year, isn't it? I mean, that's standard. But obviously, we're in a cold snap now, and we'll be working hard here for sure with the warm banks that our councils operate to ensure that people can find the warmth this winter. It's going to be a challenging few days for sure. But we're running, and we've made a big change to our buses. Actually, they've come under public control this morning, Trevor. Overnight, we've made a huge change, the biggest change to buses in the UK for decades. Half of our system has come back under public control, which means now we're fully in control of all of our buses after 40 years of very damaging deregulation. So although it's tricky and the weather is posing challenges, Greater Manchester has actually brought through a major change to public services at a time when it has felt like the country has gone backwards. Well, we've bucked that trend and we've delivered on time and on budget.
Thank you for that brilliant segue into the next question I wanted to ask you. Is this new control of this bit of transport a harbinger of things to come, that essentially, bit by bit, you want the Greater Manchester Combined Authority essentially to take control of services in your area, reaching to health and so on as well?
Now we can look back, Trevor. I think the 80s and the 90s brought some pretty disastrous policy when essentials that we need for life, I'm talking about water, energy, electricity, buses, trains, they were broken up and sold off. And I think that's left the country in a really difficult position where people are paying much more for their energy here than elsewhere in Europe. Obviously, we see the sewage in the rivers and in our seas. And here in Greater Manchester, when it comes to buses, routes were cut year after year. Fares went up year after year. The number of passengers went down. That is what happened as a result of, as I say, kind of selling off life's essentials. And absolutely, yes, to answer your question, I want to see those things, those basic things, come back under public control. We started with the buses, but the next plan, and that phase of the B network, which is our public transport, our new public transport system, is to bring 8 rail lines into the B network. Let's get those back under stronger public control, more accountable to people. But I would want to go further, and I have called for a major programme of council house building, different to social housing. If you allow councils to build more homes that people can truly afford, that gives them more control over the housing situation in their areas. And it's restoring that public control, rolling back the 1980s. That, I think, is what devolution can do to get the essentials working better for people at prices they can afford.
Well, this is quite a big vision, Mr. Mayor. And let me ask you 2 things about this. First of all, last time I talked to Angela Rayner, which was just before Christmas, she said, for example, on the issue of housing and planning, she wants you to have as much power as you can have, but she was pretty clear, if there's a conflict, she is in charge. And second, her friend Rachel Reeves, listening to what you've just said, is going to say straight away, that's a lot of money. you are heading for a conflict with Westminster, aren't you?
No, I don't think so. So on the first point, when you talk about the Secretary of State for Communities, the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner still having the step-in powers over planning, I would support that because sometimes things can't be resolved at a local level. So I'm not calling for any change there. On the second point, I think the country has to change how it thinks about housing. It is the single best investment this country could make to build a new generation of council housing. And I would say low carbon, because it's not about giving people just homes that are cheaper to rent, it's homes that are cheaper to run as well, with lower bills. That is a real solution to the challenges that this country faces right now. And if people have a good home, it's less likely that they end up in hospital or need other support. So that is a big investment in the country's future. It actually will help reduce public spending in the long run. So that is what I'm saying to the government. And of course, Angela Rayner supports what I'm saying. I just want to be freed up now to go fast with our 10 councils in building that new generation of council housing in Greater Manchester.
You will be as aware as anybody else of the controversy that's surrounding, once again, the issue of what's called grooming gangs. Dozens of men were convicted within Greater Manchester. Many of the victims have alleged that these crimes were widely known about. The government has refused to institute a national inquiry. Would there be a case for an inquiry within your area, Greater Manchester? This is something that you could do.
Well, it's interesting that you asked me that question because it suggests that you don't know what I've already done. There has been and is an ongoing major inquiry, and there has been a substantial report into what happened in Oldham. And as a result of that inquiry, there is a major police investigation. And as a result, there have been multiple arrests, charges and convictions. And that obviously seems to be lost on you. And I think there's a danger here, rather than dealing in facts, people are going straight to propaganda about the issue.
I'm fully aware of the inquiry in Oldham, but we also know that this happened in Rochdale. We also know that there were examples elsewhere in Manchester. So what I'm really asking is whether there is a case for an inquiry that goes beyond the individual local council.
Yes, there is, and I'm not in any way, I'm not directly answering that question. And in fact, I did order that overarching inquiry that you are talking about, actually within days of coming into office as Mayor of Greater Manchester. If we go back to May 2017, literally when I was elected and came in my first few days, the Betrayed Girls documentary was broadcast by the BBC. And I was travelling around one day and I heard Maggie Oliver on Radio 5 Live talking about a major police investigation in Manchester. Yes, I heard her giving a long interview on the BBC talking about how a police investigation, a major investigation into grooming and child sexual exploitation in Manchester had been stood down overnight. And I, in that moment, said, well, I can't hear that and not act on that. And it was on that precise piece of information that I acted, obviously, with the Betrayed Girls documentary as well, and said that there had to be a wide-ranging, overarching inquiry into how Greater Manchester had handled this issue in the past. And that led to a report on Manchester. It led to a report on Oldham, which was requested by Oldham Council, and it led to a third report on Rochdale, which was published pretty much a year ago, and you'll remember the coverage of that. We're now in a final stage of that inquiry, which is looking at whether the public here can have confidence now that things are as they should be.
Just very briefly, Andy, Maggie Oliver, who you mentioned, I saw yesterday, said that Keir Starmer is as responsible for not tackling this issue as any other individual. That's pretty brutal, isn't it?
Well, I go back to what I said before about it's really important that we deal with facts rather than as I say, political statements. I'm not saying that that's what Maggie Oliver did, but you look online and there's a huge amount of uninformed speculation statements that don't connect to the facts. In relation to the precise issue, as Director of Public Prosecutions, Keir Starmer made fundamental changes to address the problem that's at the heart of this, which is when victims came forward in the past, the response, the immediate response often was not to believe those girls when they came forward, and not to take forward those investigations. And that's what the review that I have ordered has revealed. And he made changes so that the victims were heard and what they said was acted upon. So, by all means, Trevor, we've been dealing with this issue for a number of years now. I welcome the discussion of whether there should be a national inquiry. All I hear is lots of politicians who have shown no interest in the investigation I ordered, who are now making grand statements about it. Well, they should have been working with us a few years ago.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we've run out of time. Thank you for your time this morning.
All right. You're welcome.